G'day guys, how are we doing? Welcome to another episode of Dream Fights. And have we got a ripper episode tonight? It is, as they say, are you ready to have some fun? Because this is the best versus the best. As you can see there, just a few fighters in the mix tonight. You can see there Canelo, Mayweather, Tyson, Leonard, De La Hoya, just to name a few. So if this is your first time watching or listening to these episodes, what we do is we match up. Well, normally what we do is we have one fighter in focus, hence the name at the end of that video there, in focus, and we match them up against 10 fighters from different eras, evenly matched fights, and I do a poll on Instagram and we read out the results, and also obviously I give my opinions and you guys do the same. But tonight, or this episode, is a little bit different because, as it says there, it is the best versus the best. So what I've done is gone through every division and, just in my humble opinion, put the best fighters possible together to create the best dream fights per division. Now, just a quick one. It doesn't mean that the two fighters that I've chosen are the two best fighters of all time in that division. It doesn't mean that at all. I haven't gone past the 70s. I say sort of every week that it's really hard to match up guys from the 50s and 60s and even as far as back as the 30s and 40s. So I try and keep it so that we can get a really good grasp of who would win. There's some fascinating matchups, and it was really, really hard to go through each division and go, geez, I'm going to put these two together, but what about that guy and what about that guy? So I really want your opinions as we go. This is the reason why I do the episode live, so to give you as much feedback, or get as much feedback from you as possible, and we can talk about who would win and why. So we've got a few fights to get through, so we won't waste too much time dwelling on things and arguing amongst ourselves, but we'll see how we go. So we're going to start at 115 and go right through to heavyweight. So it should be a little bit of fun. I had a lot of fun sort of researching this and having a think about it. And as I said, I'll go through the results of the poll as well. A couple of comments before we get going. Nectar of the Gods, looking forward to this. I missed last week's. Well, lucky for you, Nectar. I didn't actually do an episode last week because I did the live watch along for the Sam Goodman fight. So we didn't actually do one last week, mate. So you're in luck. Young Guns, excited for the matchups. Yeah, well, hopefully you've seen the matchups on Instagram, Young Guns, so you know who the matchups are. But as I said, it's a really fascinating exercise. I might think about actually after I did this, or the research today and put it all together, I just thought that what I might do is actually maybe do the same thing again, but maybe open it up to you guys about who the best fighters are to match up. So a bit of a fans sort of version, I suppose. These are all my fights, but I'd love to get your opinions of maybe just who you guys would like to actually match up. So let's get through it, and then maybe you can put a few suggestions in there about some future matchups that we might do, or especially some fighters as well. So we'll see how we go. All right, so without further ado, we're going to get into it. We'll probably get a few more viewers as we're going. A few people see that we're live and tune in. So don't be shy. That's probably my first and most important comment to you guys. Put your comments in there, your opinions. If you disagree, hey, let me know about it. Let's have a bit of constructive conversation about who would win these dream fights and why. All right, well, we're going to start at 115, and then, as I said, work our way up. Let's start with the first fight, and we're going to start with what a fight this would be. Michael Carbajal and Jesse Rodriguez. We'll start with Michael Carbajal, 49-4. 33 knockouts, turned pro in 1989 after going to the Seoul Olympics. I think he won, a silver medal at the Seoul Olympics. Turned pro, as I said, in 1989. Got his first world title shot in, where was it? It was in 1990 against Leon Salazar, who he stopped in the fourth round. Who can forget those memorable fights with Humberto Gonzalez? The first fight between them was in 1993. Carbajal won that fight. He lost the rematch in 1994 and also the rubber match in 1994 as well, but fought regularly against the best of his division, fought right through until 1999, where he actually stopped Jorge Arce for the WBO light flyweight title. So just a phenomenal fighter was Michael Carbajal. And as I said, retired with a record of 49-4. With just get rid of that, 49-4 with 33 knockouts. So just a phenomenal fighter was Michael Carbajal. Let's go to Jesse Rodriguez, obviously the current day world champion at 115. He has a record of 21-0, 14 knockouts. Turned pro in 2017, so hasn't been a pro for that long. So I suppose it's his 8th year. So won his first world title in, I was looking through there, what was it? 2022 against Carlos Quadros, won a 12-round decision. And since then, has beaten the likes of Sonny Edwards, Juan Francisco Estrada, Pedro Guevara. Now, did he beat the Thai in there as well? What was his name? What was his name? I think he did, or was going to fight him. Either way, but just an electrifying fighter. He's got a unification fight coming up with Pumalela Cafu. I'll spit that out. In was that a couple of months' time in July. So that is Michael Carbajal, Jesse Rodriguez. Well, let's start with the poll. And this really surprised me. 90% went for Jesse Rodriguez. 10% went for Michael Carbajal. Now, look, what's that, Young Guns? I'm listening in, but some of these guys I'm not so familiar with. Well, after I've gone through these fights, Young Guns, make sure you do yourself a favor and get on YouTube and research, and more importantly, watch these guys fight. Now, Michael Carbajal, look, only 10% going for him. I was really surprised by that because this would be an electrifying fight. Michael Carbajal, he was tall, rangy, obviously skilled Olympic gold, silver medalist, world champion, obviously multiple times. But he had a lot of heart, especially if you look at those fights with Humberto Gonzalez. Rodriguez he's only had, the 21 fights. So it's really hard to probably make too much out of his career so far. He's got a long way to go. Look, as it stands, I'm going to agree with the poll and go with Rodriguez. I think it would be just an electrifying fight. Some really big bombs being thrown. I'm just going to go with Rodriguez, but not with a lot of confidence. Probably maybe a lot like a lot of the people out there that went with Rodriguez as well. So Jesse Bam Rodriguez for me. Now, what would it be by? Would it be by points, by knockout? I'm going to go on points. I think Michael Carbajal lasts the distance and has his moments against Jesse Rodriguez. This is not a slam dunk for Jesse Rodriguez. This would be a tough fight. Michael Carbajal, just as I said, just full of heart. Really a lot of endurance for his size and weight as well. It would be a great fight. But I'm going to go with Jesse Bam Rodriguez on points in that one. We've got Glenn in the chat. How are you, Glenn? Give us your thoughts, mate. You're lucky we've only just gone through one fight, and that was, as I said just then, Jesse Rodriguez to get or squeak by Michael Carbajal in a really close fight. Let's go next to, what do we got there? Nectar of the Gods. I'll have an opinion when we get to 135 pounds and on. I don't pay attention to anything below that. Yep, that's cool. Glenn, yep, Bam footwork too good. Yeah, that's an underrated thing by Bam Rodriguez, and he's got very, very good footwork, very good skills. He can obviously punch. He's just a bit of everything. He's Jesse Rodriguez, and I think maybe just that extra dimension, I think, would get him over the line over Michael Carbajal, who was really good up and down fighter. But I just call that a gut feel. I think Jesse Rodriguez gets this win. Just another thing, guys. If I go on to another fight, there is like a 30 seconds delay sometimes. If I go into another fight, don't stress. I'll go back and answer your question or comment from the previous fight. Let's go to 118. Or they talk about fireworks. This time we go to Carlos Zarate, the great Mexican champion, up against the modern day, the monster, isn't he? Inoue. For all the belts, this would be at 118. What an electrifying fight this would be. Carlos Zarate, 66-4 with 63 knockouts, if you can believe that. Now, he turned pro way back in 1970. I'll just skim through these records too, guys. I'll only give you the greatest hits because we've got a lot of fights to get through. Won his first world title in, what year was it? It was in the late 70s, I think it was. There it is, 1976, over Rodolfo Martinez for the WBC bantamweight title. He actually beat our own Paul Ferrari in 1976. Suffered his first defeat against Wilfredo Gomez, who's going to be featured very, very soon. That was in 1978 when he went up to 122. Had also lost to Lupi Pintor, but just knockout after knockout after knockout, Carlos Zarate. And in 1987, at the age of 36, actually fought our own Jeff Fennick and then lost to Daniel Zaragoza after that, about 4 months later, again for the same title, the WBC 122-pound title. His opponent, Naoya Inoue, of course, still going strong. 30-0, 27 knockouts. So if you look at the records between them, it is 96 wins, 4 losses, and 90 knockouts. That's pretty daunting, isn't it? But yeah, Naoya Inoue turned pro in 2012. Won his first world title in 2014, and since then has just gone on an absolute rampage and won titles in 4 divisions and maybe 5 coming up. Before we get on to the poll and my prediction, we'll go with where are we? I was going to say Glenn. I think I'll just put your comment up there. Yep, cool. Drew, I feel like the lopsided poll against Carbajal is a case of recency bias. Yeah, I was going to say that, Drew. I agree. I still have Rodriguez, but not by such lopsided figures. Yeah, I'm with you, mate. And that was my exact sentiments, actually. I think while I understand the poll, I 100% agree that recency bias is a big thing. Carbajal was a very, very good fighter. And maybe the 90% of people that actually voted for Rodriguez maybe hadn't seen a lot of Carbajal, or maybe they were tossing and turning like I was. Who knows? But all right, we'll get to the poll in a sec. Glenn says, I think Zarate clips him and wins by KO. The monster gets hit a bit too much for a puncher like him. Young Gun says, I'll have to check out some Zarate fights. You will, mate, for sure. What's that? Young Guns at Aaron Pryor in the picture over your right shoulder. No, that is Manny Pacquiao and Ricky Hatton. Their Young Guns. I've got that up there because that was the first fight I ever really went to going to Las Vegas. It was in 2009. Hold a little bit of a special time in my heart because it was such an awesome trip and my first big fight in Vegas. So it is not Aaron Pryor. All right, we'll get to the poll. And it's probably not surprising. Again, going back to the recency bias, Naoya Inoue, 83%. Now, just some figures on this to put it in clarity. We get about 30 to 40 votes. So I know it's not a massive amount, but it really gives you a good indication of who's thinking what. So 83% went for Naoya Inoue. Only 17% went for Carlos Zarate. Now, I'm going to go for Naoya Inoue in this myself. I'm liking in this. Is that a word? Likening this fight to the Wilfredo Gomez fight. If you haven't seen that, again, watch it on YouTube. Carlos Zarate, Wilfredo Gomez, who's up next, I think, at 122. I just think Zarate, very tall for a 118-pound fighter, but very up and down. He's just that typical Mexican fighter. He'll stand right in front of you. He'll rip, he'll hook. Obviously, he had devastating knockout power with, 63 knockouts in 66 fights. That shows you how big a puncher this guy was. I just think the flip side of that is that Naoya Inoue is a devastating puncher at 118. He's a real sharpshooter with his punches as well. And I just think the way Carlos Zarate would sort of stand right in front of him and not really move his head too much and just really try and get low and rip and hook, I just think he would be a sitting duck for those really pinpoint shots by Naoya Inoue. And I could actually see Naoya Inoue taking Carlos Zarate out in about 8 or 9 rounds. It would take a lot of punishment, don't get me wrong. But again, I think his speed with his feet and his hands, those lightning quick punches, the power that goes with them, just a real good mixture of that lightning and thunder in the hands of Naoya Inoue. And I just think as tough as Zarate was, I could just see maybe getting sort of cut down as the fight went on. A little bit similar to the Wilfredo Gomez fight. So I do agree with it, and I'm going for Naoya Inoue by 8th, maybe 9th round knockout. What's that, Young Guns? I was way off. I'm on my phone. Hard to see. All good, mate. Yeah. I won't. I was going to turn the camera around, but I won't do that. I'll end up buggering the whole thing up. So there you go. So fight number 2 is down, and for me, Naoya Inoue gets the job done in that fight. All right, let's move on to the next fight. And this will be explosive as well. It is Wilfredo Gomez versus Marco Antonio Barrera. Now, the first thing I'll do is apologise for the spelling of Barrera. When I put the slide up before, the first thing I noticed was that I spelt his name wrong. I think it's Barrera. So apologies about that. Shame on me, isn't it? So Wilfredo Gomez and Marco Antonio Barrera. Before we go, what do you got there, young guns? Not $1.99. Thanks very much, mate, for a super chat. Respect the breakdowns. No worries at all, mate. Just doing my best. I know not everyone will agree with what I'm saying, but again, this is why I'm doing it live, and you guys can have your say. So Wilfredo Gomez, 44-3-1, 42 knockouts. Again, they didn't call him the bazooka for nothing. Turned pro in 1974, surprising with a draw. Won his first world title. I'll just skim through his record here. In 1977, when he knocked out Raul Tirado for the WBC 122-pound title. Defended it numerous times, including over Carlos Zarate in 1978. And had his first maybe the second big super fight after the Zarate fight, when he came up against Salvador Sanchez in 1981. Stopped in 8 rounds. Salvador Sanchez will feature in the next fight, by the way. They all sort of roll into the next, don't they? But that was in 1981. I think he won the title again in 1982 and went through there. He did lose that belt in 1984 to Azuma Nelson. And that was pretty much the end for him. He did beat Rocky Lockridge his fight after that, but then lost to Alfredo Lane in 1986 and retired in 1989. His opponent, Marco Antonio Barrera, 67-7, 44 knockouts, turned pro in 1989. I think we're all familiar with Barrera's record. He won his first world title in, if I can find it here, 1994 over Carlos Salazar for the... that was a eliminator. Apologies about that. Where was it? There it is, 1995. Daniel Jimenez for the WBO World Super Bantamweight title, and again, won numerous world titles, fought the likes of Morales and Pacquiao, and you name it. Just Johnny Tapia was another one. Just unbelievable fights. Won Manuel Marquez, I think there it is there. Lost to him in 2007. So a fantastic resume, and 67-7 record to finish up. We'll go back just to get a couple of comments before we go to this fight. This is the Zarate Inoue fight. Drew says Inoue has been dropped a few times and shown some great powers of recovery. But if he got clipped by Zarate, it might be all over. That said, I have Inoue. Yeah, I'm with you there, Drew. It's a very, very dangerous fight. But again, I just think the speed difference with feet and hands. I think that Inoue matches Zarate with power, but just that speed factor, that's the thing that sort of sways it my way with Inoue. And again, the way that Zarate just doesn't move his head. He's just a sitting target there for Inoue, and I reckon that spells bad news. Glenn actually agrees, but says he actually thinks he stops the monster. Yep, that's cool. Well, 17% agree with you there, Glenn. It would be an unbelievably tough fight. It would be... all these fights are, by the way. It's so hard to pick. All right, let's go to the... this is a close one, actually. Go to the poll, and 58% went for Wilfredo Gomez to beat Marco Antonio Barrera, who obviously got 42%. Yeah, good call there, Glenn. Timing does beat speed. I'm just not sure Carlos Zarate was that guy, Glenn, who would be that. Like he could be a little bit reckless. For Carlos Zarate, it wasn't about ring IQ, Glenn. About maybe timing in a way, or his thing, like a lot of Mexicans, was get close, put the head on the chest, rip, hook until you just wear them down. I don't think Carlos Zarate, for me, is the type of guy or fighter that had the smarts, I suppose, to do what you're saying there and really time in a way. I just think no in a way, mate. But hey, it will be a great fight. All right, on to this one. I think Wilfredo Gomez would win this fight. I think Barrera would definitely have his moments. I think Gomez would have to dig deep. I think he would win on points, but it would be very close. I think Gomez would obviously do his best work early. That's just a massive puncher. Barrera, I think, would be way too smart to really get caught with a lot of shots. Gomez could box as well, don't get me wrong, but I just think that he would build up a few of those early rounds. I just think he'd get a little bit better of those exchanges. I would expect maybe that Barrera would maybe finish the better. But I've just got a feeling after maybe 9 rounds, it might be like 6 rounds to 3 or 7 rounds to 2 or something for Gomez, and Barrera would come home and maybe win the last 2 or 3 and make it close. But I'm going to go with Wilfredo Gomez on points, which is surprising considering he had, what did I say, 44 wins and 42 knockouts, was it? Yeah, 44 wins for 42 knockouts. I think this would be one of the rare occasions that he would have to go the distance. So it was a little bit tough at this weight. I almost, just another thing here, there's a couple of ones I had to leave out because I've actually done those same fights over the last couple of weeks. I really wanted to put maybe Jeff Fenech in at 122. I think he's one of the greatest at that weight, but I did Jeff a couple of weeks ago against Wilfredo Gomez, so I excluded him from this. I had to put Gomez in there because he for me, he's the number one 122-pound fighter of all time. And I had to exclude Jeff from this one, unfortunately. But Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales could have been another one we could have put in there. We could have even put Pacquiao in there. We could have put so many different fighters in there, but I've gone for Barrera. So give me your thoughts on that one, guys. Yes, as I said, Gomez over Barrera. Now, this, for me, is probably one of the top 2 or 3 hardest fights to pick as we go to 126. It is 2 all-time greats. Well, I suppose all these guys are great. The late Salvador Sanchez and also the late Alexis Arguello both died well before their time, especially Salvador Sanchez, who died at just 23 years of age. He had a 44-1-1 record with 32 knockouts. He turned pro in 1975, won the world title against Danny Little Red Lopez in 1980 with a 13th round stoppage. Actually backed it up with a 14th round stoppage. I think it was the same year. It was the same year, but beat the likes of Ruben Castillo, Juan Laporte, Wilfredo Gomez, and Azuma Nelson before that untimely death. So he had his last fight in 1982, but can you believe that at just 23 years of age? Just incredible to sort of get your head around. I've missed, who have I missed there? Arguello. Sorry, I haven't brought up his record. Let me do it now. Apologies about that. Oop, I'll bring it up right now. Here we go. I'll just type it in. Box rec. Just talk amongst yourselves there for a second. How could I forget the explosive thin man? All right, we'll type it in here. I think I just cut another one out there. All right, 77-8 with 62 knockouts. What a champion this guy was. Turned pro way back in 1968 and actually lost 2 consecutive fights. His 4th and 5th fights, if you can believe that. Won his first world title. Now, where was it? It was in the 70s. If I can find it here. Just remember, too, if I've missed it with these fights, the WBA aren't on BoxRec anymore. So these guys have won a WBA belt. It's not going to come up. But he did beat, where is it? I'm just trying to find it here. Alfredo Escalera in 1978. Defended it numerous times, including the Ray Mancini fight at 135. Just, again, a multiple world champion. Won, 3, went for 4 against Aaron Pryor. Came up short. Twice beat also the likes of Rafael Bazooka Limon, Bobby Chacon, Ruben Castillo, Rolando Navarrete, Cornelius Bozer Edwards, Jose Luis Ramirez. Just an unbelievable resume did Alexis Arguello. And that's why he was the explosive thin man there, young guns. Yeah, Glenn, the greatest dream fight ever. I'm with you, mate. It was a really, really hard fight it was easy to think of because it was like, all right, who are the 2 best at featherweights? Well, it was obviously Salvador Sanchez and then it was Alexis Arguello. I mean, Arguello could have even made a case of even being at lightweight or 130, whatever. But, I mean, I think he was at his best at 126 to the poll. And 67% thought that Salvador Sanchez would beat Alexis Arguello. So 33% went for Alexis Arguello. This is such a tough fight to work out. Very similar styles, very tall for the weight. Very, very good counter punches, pinpoint punches. But they could both punch. Both had a lot of knockouts on the records. What was it there? So 62 for Alexis Arguello, and I was at 32 for Salvador Sanchez. Before we get into that, the super chat from Andy. Thanks very much, mate. Really appreciate that. $10. Really appreciate it. Another small contribution to the appreciation fund. It is very much appreciated, mate. This is awesome. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, share, smash that like button. Yeah, good stuff, mate. Thank you again. All right, so who wins and why? All right, I'm going to go with you for a second, Glenn. I'll go out on the limb. I think size might help Alexis, so I'll go with him. Okay. I'm going to go with Alexis Arguello as well, but not with a lot of confidence. I just think at 126, look, as I said, very, very similar styles. It would have been a real chess match. Both of them would have been waiting for the other to punch. I could see Salvador Sanchez on the back foot and Alexis Arguello being the aggressor, even though I think he would have been the taller fighter as well from memory. But I think Alexis Arguello would be pushing the action. Look, this is just coming down to gut feel, guys. I can't really say Alexis Arguello wins definitively because of this or that. I just think it would be, as I said, a real chess match. Very similar styles, very similar ways of getting opponents out of there. They would really just dissect their opponents round by round, even minute by minute, exchange by exchange. They would just break their opponent down. And then it would be most of the time an accumulation of punches that would get their opponents out of there. So a very, very tough one. What's that, Glenn? I think he might time Sanchez with a right hand. Yeah, maybe. And look, the other thing is it's really hard to get a really accurate gauge of Salvador Sanchez. I mean, he's 23 years old. He was probably 3 years, maybe 4 years away from actually hitting his peak. So we've got to go by what we see now, though, or what we did back then in 1982. So we've got to go by the 23-year-old version of Sanchez. And it may be in another 3 years after that. Who knows? It could have been a different story. But based on the 23-year-old Salvador Sanchez from 1982, I'm going to go for Alexis Arguello by points. I think Sanchez is pretty slick, or was pretty slick, and I don't think he would be the type to get hit and knocked out. So I'm going to go for Alexis Arguello. A draw, Andy. Yep. Glenn, yep. I'm with you. Look, you're probably right. If I had to go through any of these fights and say this has got draw written all over it, well, maybe there's one or two other ones in there that we'll get to. But this is definitely a fight that I could look at, or we could all look at and say that this could easily be a draw. So I'll get you guys to sit on the fence. I'm going to go for Alexis Arguello. All right. The next one, surprisingly, wasn't so close. Very, very one-sided, in fact. Let's go to 130 pounds. This time it is the Professor, Azuma Nelson, against the Matrix, Vasily Lomachenko. Azuma Nelson, 38-6-2 with 27 KOs. Wow, what a fight this would be. So turned pro in 1979. He came up short against Salvador Sanchez, as we just discussed then, in 1982. But I think he only had a handful of fights by then, only like a dozen fights. So he's only a young guy. Was stopped in the 15th round of that fight. Got his another opportunity in 1984 when he knocked out Wilfredo Gomez in the 11th round, and then just went on a tear. He beat the likes of Marcos Villasana a couple of times, Mario Martinez. Just going through there. He's lost against Pernell Whitaker, beat Juan Laporte. The draw with Jeff Fenech, we all remember that. Knocked out Jeff in the rematch. Beat the likes again of Calvin Grove, Gabriel Ruiz, Jesse James Leha, Gabriel Ruiz again. And had that, well, he retired 10 years after his sort of last main or real fight against Leha. That bit of a sham against Jeff Fenech in 2008. That was his last fight. But as I said, retired with a record of 38-6-2. His opponent, who is sort of still going, isn't he, is Vasily Lomachenko. Only had the 21 fights, by the way, but I think it was a three-time or at least two-time Olympic gold medalist. Turned pro in 2013. Had a world title fight in his second fight, and I think lost a disputed, well, let's maybe say questionable decision to Orlando Salido. Won the world title in his next fight against Gary Russell, and since then has beaten the likes of Rigondeaux, Nicholas Walters, Guillermo Rigondeaux. Yeah, apologies about that. Jorge Linares. We lost to Teofimo Lopez. He's beaten Luke Campbell. Had that questionable loss to Devin Haney as well. But only 21 fights. Has a current record of 18-2 and 3 with 12 knockouts. And who knows whether he'll fight again. But it's amazing that he had 21 fights over 11 years in the sport. So what's that? Not even 2 fights a year. Just amazing. Who we got here? Nectar of the Gods. I'd love Loma in this. I think he's better at everything than Nelson. Glenn says Nelson would never have seen anything like Loma. Clear Loma win. So Big J, if you're getting the ultimate dream fight, Big J versus that chump. Give us a prediction. I reckon the chump is in pretty good condition, Big J. You might have the size and strength on Jay McAllister we're talking about. But I reckon Jay is on his toes for about the first minute. And I think you've given it your best shot for the first 60 seconds, mate. And then I think he comes over the top and bowls you over in about the third round. How's that? How's that going to go down? You asked, by the way. All right. The predictions. Well, again, I was surprised, but on the other hand, not surprised. The only clear sweep or clean sweep of the whole thing, 100% thought that Lomachenko would beat Azuma Nelson. Look, I have to agree. Look, Azuma Nelson was a great fighter, but he excelled against the right type of fighter. And most of the guys he fought were obviously guys like Jeff Fennick, who would put the pressure on him. All the Mexican guys, Villasana and Martinez and Villasana and all. What did I say? I said Villasana, Martinez. All those guys. Sorry, I've got rid of his record there. I'm looking at Loma's record there, thinking where are all the Mexicans? But look, Azuma Nelson would look better with fighters coming at him, not having to chase them. And I think that you look at the Pernell Whitaker fight with Azuma Nelson, that probably shows you as much as you need to see. I think Lomachenko, so fast with his hands and his feet. And at 130, I think that was his peak weight, was 130. But lightning fast, that timing, I just think he would just totally befuddle Azuma Nelson. It might be a little bit of a different story if Loma decided to maybe get into the trenches and exchange a little bit with Azuma Nelson, which would fall right into Azuma's sort of trap, I suppose. But Lomachenko is just way too smart for that. He would stick to the game plan. He would just continually counterpunch Azuma Nelson, and I think would win a clear-cut 12-round decision. No way he stops Azuma Nelson, but I think he wins maybe as far or as wide as maybe 10 rounds to maybe 9-3, something like that. But I think it will be a definitive win to Vasily Lomachenko over Azuma Nelson. And Nectar of the Gods agrees with my prediction with the chump and Big J. He's got him winning by second round KO. And Big J, I don't want to hear that I'm bigger and stronger and hit harder. Mate, you should know being a boxing man, that means nothing. And I think the other old mate, Jay, I think he'd be a little bit quick with his hands and feet there than you, mate. Might have a bit more endurance than you, let's just say. Anyway, give me your thoughts. All right, we'll move on. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights down. We've got about 8 or 9 to go, so it's going to be a bit of a long night. Let's get into the 135-pound fight. And again, this is one of the absolute hardest fights to pick. Have a look at this one. Where is it? If I can find it. 135 it is. Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker up against Manos Di Piedra Roberto Duran, the Hands of Stone. Pernell Whitaker turned pro in 1984 after winning an Olympic gold medal at the LA Olympics, and got his first world title fight. I think it was in 1988, and he lost a very, very controversial decision to Jose Luis Ramirez. He avenged that loss a couple of years later, but in the meantime, a couple of fights later, beat Greg Haugen in an absolute masterclass in 1989 for the IBF belt. And as I said, he got the revenge against Jose Luis Ramirez, beat the likes of Azuma Nelson, Jorge Paez. I mean, I'm just going through Buddy McGirt, Julio Cesar Chavez with that draw. Just his greatest hits there. Questionable loss to Oscar De La Hoya as well. He lost to Felix Trinidad in 1999 when he was well past his peak at 147. So just an unbelievable fighter was Sweet Pea. And he's up against, sorry, did I say his record there? I didn't. Sorry about that. Sorry, I've got rid of his record there. Apologies about that. Roberto Duran turned pro in, was it 1970? Won the title against Jim Watt. He lost actually a fight along the way to Esteban de Jesus. I think he beat him another 2 times after that from memory. Just trying to find the Jim Watt fight. Where is it? It's in there somewhere. But he did avenge. Look, I don't have to go through Roberto Duran's record. He ended up with a 103 win, 16 loss record, 70 knockouts, fought all the way up to 165. Actually, no, he actually had a fight at 175 late in his career, but fought right up until 160. He had that memorable win over Davey Moore at 154 when everyone thought he was gone. Another memorable win, 6 years later against Iran Barkley when everyone thought he was gone as well. Actually, I think the David Moore fight was 83. I think, yeah, 83. Then the Barkley fight in 89. He just kept reinventing himself time after time after time. G'day, Daniel. I've been waiting for you to come in the chat there, mate. Duran for me. Not even Whitaker could keep this buzzsaw off him. Yep. Nectar of the Guide says Whitaker on points for me. Look, this is extremely tough to pick. Glenn, what'd you go for? If Purnell is disciplined, sticks to his boxing, he frustrates Duran and wins on points. Footwork just a bit too good, but he'd have to focus the whole fight. Yep. Well, let's go to the poll. And the winner of this dream fight with a margin of 55% to 45% was Roberto Duran. So 55% thought he would beat Pernell Whitaker. Look, I'm going to have to be in a minority here. I think Pernell Whitaker takes it, based purely on style, by the way. Just, look, if you look at that Esteban de Jesus fight, you look at even the fights with Leonard. I know it was a hard one because he wasn't quite prepared and all that sort of stuff. Wilfredo Benitez totally outboxed Duran. I just think if you had fought Duran the right way, as we've seen against Leonard, you could frustrate him, you could counter him. Duran, like a lot of great fighters, relies on the opponents to come to them so they can do the best work. Pernell Whitaker wouldn't do that. He'd be at long range. He would just be countering Roberto Duran. And as much as I think that Roberto Duran overall would probably be the greater lightweight in history, arguable, of course, I just think Pernell Whitaker gets him. I just think style-wise, Pernell Whitaker just times Roberto Duran, counters him, steps off to the side, doesn't give Duran that opportunity to really stop and set and punch really nail Whitaker. I've got to go with Whitaker. I'm sorry. And I know that probably won't go down well with a lot of people, especially the 55% that said Duran. As they always say, styles make fights, and I just think Pernell Whitaker has one of the only, I think, 2 or 3 fighters in history that I would actually give a chance against Duran at that weight. And in this case, I actually think he beats him. If I'm going to go out on a limb, I think that maybe Floyd Mayweather as the pretty boy version are probably the only 2 fighters I would give a shot against Roberto Duran at 135 and could beat Duran. And as I said, in this instance, I'm actually picking Whitaker to win on points. All right, let me have it, guys. I want to hear your comments. I'll move on, but I'll come back once the comments come through and you've had a chance to digest what I've just said. Let's go up to 140 this time, and wow, we'll talk about super fights. This is Julio Cesar Chavez, the pride of Mexico, up against Manny Pacquiao, the pride of the Philippines. Let's go firstly to Julio Cesar Chavez, turned pro way back in 1981. Got his first world title shot in 1985. Sorry, I take that back. 85 in April of that year. He won sorry, let's shut up, Lyndon. You're just embarrassing yourself here. That wasn't his first title. It was actually Mario Martinez back in 1984 as well. He won on an 8th round stoppage for the WBC 130-pound title. He defended it against Ruben Castillo and Roger Mayweather. And as we all know, just went on a tear. That fight against Edwin Rosario at 135, I think to this day, is still his most impressive performance. The way he totally demolished and took apart Edwin Rosario, who was coming off a devastating second-round knockout of Livingston Bramble. But he beat the likes of Rocky Lockridge, won Laporte, as I said, Edwin Rosario, Hector Camacho, Meldrick Taylor, who can forget that fight? The draw with Pernell Whitaker. I mean, this is a guy who literally cleaned out about 3, if not 4 divisions. Unbelievable fighter, and still, in my opinion, without doubt, the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter. Mexican pound-for-pound fighter ever. Nectar of the Gods is already Pac-Man on points. Okay. Big J says Pac-Man by KO. Come on, Daniel, I want to hear your opinion here, mate. Let's go through Manny Pacquiao's career. Of course, he's not finished yet. He's still going. He's fighting in a couple of months' time. He turned pro in 1985. And look, all we can say is he's won world titles in 8 different divisions. Fought just literally the who's who of world boxing through those journeys. The Morales and Barreras and Mayweathers and De La Hoyas and Hattons and you name it. He's fought them. The Kodos. I'll be here all night going through his list of achievements. So that is Manny Pacquiao, retired with a record of 62-8, 2 draws with 39 KOs. All right, so who wins and why? I'll get to you, Glenn, first. Manny's footwork and southpaw stance murders him. Late stoppage for the Pac-Man. Okay. The poll said the winner of this fight would be with a score of 58%, or a vote of 58%, was, yes, the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao. Daniel says, if Marquez can stop Manny, so can Chavez. Prime Chavez gets the nod. Well, I'm glad someone's gone for Chavez, Daniel, because I agree with you. I think Julio Cesar Chavez wins this fight. I think he would match Pacquiao for work rate. And different types of fighters, by the way. When I say work rate, I just mean being able to fight 3 minutes of every round for 12 rounds. Pacquiao, a lot more explosive, threw a lot more punches, or throws a lot more punches. He's not finished yet. I just think that Chavez's smarts, his evasiveness, I think he would make a lot of those punches miss, and I think he would really make Pacquiao pay on the counter. And I think as the fight went on, I would think as the fights went on, when he got fatigued, he would get a little bit looser. He'd open himself up a bit. He'd probably take a few more chances. I just don't think you do that against a fighter like Julio Cesar Chavez. I think that Chavez would get on top as the fight went on. I think he'd close the gap. He'd rip, he'd hook, as most Mexicans do. And I just think he'd get to Pacquiao more and more as the fight went on. And I think he'd have the ability to maybe stop Manny in maybe 10 or 11 rounds. Yes, I'm sure it's going to come there. Yes, Manny Pacquiao, lightning quick, threw a lot of punches. Chavez could be easy to hit sometimes, but I think his defense was actually underrated. Watch his fights. He didn't get hit a lot. Very rarely did Julio Cesar Chavez come out of a ring with cuts, with bruises, with a lot of marks. Very, very rarely. Watch his fights carefully. Very rarely came out marked up. And you'll watch him sometimes, a little bit like Canelo does a little bit, or used to at 160, 154. He'd just turn his head a little bit and make the punch miss by a centimetre. Chavez had that ability, but also very, very slick mover on his feet as well. Very underrated with his footwork. Not the fastest guy, but just efficient. Cut the ring off very, very well. And I just think that he would be able to match Manny in close. And I think as the fight went on, I think he could stop Manny late in the fight, as I said, 10 or 11 rounds. So that's my opinion of that one. Glenn, Marquez, and Chavez, very different fighters. Yep. Daniel says, but not. Yes, different, but not, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, no, you are right. Look, the thing is, what Marquez and Chavez both had in spades was timing. Very, very good timers of punches. They really were. Obviously, Marquez was, because who can forget that right hand that nailed Pac-Man? But Chavez was the same. He could, as I said before, make you miss by a centimetre and come back and hit you with a counter punch very, very quickly. So, look, very, very tough fight. Look, I could probably see maybe Manny, if he fought a smart fight, maybe that in and out sort of version, in and out, off to the side type of Manny, it could really pose some questions for Chavez. But I just get the feeling like maybe a little bit that Manny did with Marquez. As the fight went on, he would get involved in a firefight at some stage, which would play right into Chavez's hands, and that's why I think Chavez gets to Manny as the fight goes on and stops him late. Victor, don't you think Chavez beat a lot of cans while Pac-Man fought more killers? You can only fight who they put in front of you, Victor. Chavez, literally, probably a little bit like Pac-Man, he cleaned out the division. Every single top fighter of his generation, he fought and beat, apart from Oscar a little bit later in his career. Costa was the same, Costa Zoo. Look, yeah, there are a lot of tomato cans in there, Victor. Make no mistake about that. But he had, 115 fights or whatever it was. So I think if you take out those easy beats, he probably still had another 70 or 75 fights against actually capable guys. And when you clean out the 130 division, the 135-pound division, the 140-pound division, and then even do that at 147, I think that more than cancels out some of those tomato cans, mate. And look, Pac-Man was probably the era after Chavez where fighters would only fight maybe 2, sometimes 3 a year. Chavez was fighting 4, 5, sometimes 6 times a year. I think that Pac-Man era was that first step after the Chavez era where they fought really, really often. And obviously, the money was a lot better and they didn't have to fight as often. But as I said, I think that cancels out the Chavez tomato can resume that he had. He beat a lot of good fighters, Victor. A lot of really, really good fighters. Convincingly, too, by the way. Didn't really struggle with any of them. So, Glenn says, I get what you mean. Daniel Chavez, more the pressure fighter, but Marquez probably the better combination and counter puncher. Yep. Drew says, I think a prime Pac-Man is just a fraction too quick and elusive, plus he carried some robust power. Yeah, he did. Very tough to hurt Chavez, though, Drew. Mr. Serioso says, I'm sure you've covered it plenty. Costa versus De La Hoya. Yeah, we did Costa a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Serioso. We did a whole segment just on Costa. This is why a couple of these fights have been left out, because Costa and De La Hoya at 140, of course, would make sense. Aaron Pryor's another one that we've put in there as well. So that's why he wasn't sort of factored in. I mean, Costa versus Pac-Man, really, when you think about it, would be the best at 140 pounds. But again, I'll put those in this dream fight from a couple of weeks ago. So in this one, I wanted 2 fighters that I haven't matched up in the last few weeks, and that is Chavez and Pacquiao. What a fight that would be. Another one I also looked at lightweight was Chavez and Duran. Oh, what a fight that would be as well. So that's why we have our opinions here, guys. It's all good. Victor, what's that? That's fair. It's like Bud. People don't like his competition. All the best at 135, 140, 147, but he dominated them. Yep, that's right, mate. Yeah, go back, Mr. Serioso. They're all there. This is about our 6th episode that we've done, so check them out. All right, I think we might be about halfway through, so we've got a little bit of time to go. Might be a late one, this one. Let's go to 147, and this is probably another one that could really quite conceivably be a draw, and it is Sugar Ray Leonard and Floyd Money Mayweather. Sugar Ray Leonard turned pro in 1977 after winning the gold medal in 1976, and again, we'll just skim over his career. Won his first world title against Wilfredo Benitez. Actually had a win over Floyd Mayweather Sr. If you check out his resume, you'll go through and go, geez, he beat Floyd Mayweather. No, that was his dad. But yeah, he beat Benitez for that title by 15th round decision. Lost that belt, of course, to Roberto Duran. Reclaimed it. And along the way, unbelievable fights. Classics against Thomas Hearns and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Even the wins over Donnie Lalonde at 168 were great wins as well. So, sensational fighter. I'll just go back to the home screen there. Sorry about that. And then we go to, one of the most perplexing fighters out there, wasn't he? Floyd Mayweather Jr. Turned pro in 1996 after the Atlanta Olympics in 96. Again, I'll just skim over his career. The likes, I'll just go through. I'll find them there. Won the title, Jose Luis Castillo. He's beaten Sharma Mitchell, Zab Judah, Oscar De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, Juan Manuel Marquez, Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, Saul Canelo Alvarez, Marcos Maidana a couple of times, Manny Pacquiao, Andre Berto. I mean, you name it, and he's fought them and beat them. So what a fight that would be. Glenn, obviously not a big fan of Floyd Mayweather, says Leonard takes his head off. Leonard, for me, says nectar of the gods. All that aside, says Glenn, Leonard is too big. G'day, Kane. How are you there, mate? Welcome to the show. Daniel, I don't like sitting on the fence, but I reserve my right to do so on this occasion. Draw. I don't know why. No, we'll make this a 12-round, Young Guns. I don't know, Glenn, why you're so critical of Floyd Mayweather Jr. I think he has easily got just as good a resume as Sugar Ray Leonard. And before you say, yeah, but Leonard beat Hagler, and you got to take a breath, by the way, before you come back at me. But he beat Hearns and he beat Hagler and Duran the second time. You know, they're probably the three biggest wins on his career. But you look at Mayweather, look at the guys he's beaten, the couple there, you know, Canelo, De La Hoya, Pacquiao. And I know it's, he fought them when they were washed up or he cherry-picked. You can only beat who they put in front of you. He was similar to age to all these guys he's fighting, by the way, sometimes older. He beat them all. So I've got to shut down a little bit of the Floyd Mayweather criticism. 50-0 for a reason. He beat literally everybody. The only fighter or fighters maybe you could throw in there who didn't fight, maybe there's an Antonio Margarita, but I think he absolutely wins every single round against Margarito. So I think he gives Sugar Ray Leonard a unbelievable fight. I'll get to the poll or my results in a second. You can't shoulder roll Leonard's off you. Oh, I don't know. I think he'd do all right. I've got Sugar Ray by decision, says Young Guns. I think his combination punching will get it. Sugar Ray too good, says 94 Zol. Drew says got Mayweather all day, just far too multi-dimensional. Kane says he's got Leonard, but in a really interesting fight. Well, I got really no idea with this one. That's why I think I'll call it a draw. No, I'll pick someone in a second. Let's go to the poll. And the winner of the 147-pound division dream fight, I won't say unanimous, we'll call it a split decision. 58% went to Sugar Ray Leonard. 42% over Floyd Money Mayweather. Kane says Floyd at lightweight was something else. All right, Glenn, not critical. I just think he's a level above. Put Leonard up against Floyd's opponents and he beats them with greater ease. Yeah, look, make no mistake, Glenn. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard, while he's, in my opinion, definitely in the top sort of 6 or 7 pound-for-pound fighters of all time. Just an unbelievable fighter. Young Gun says, I think Floyd could have beaten these guys at better times, especially when he was Money Mayweather. Well, what about we do, we're obviously doing the fight now, but what about we do a Floyd Mayweather episode where we'll match him up against all those great sort of lightweights through to welterweights, maybe even up to 154, and let's see how we think he goes. We might do that in the next episode. Floyd Money Mayweather / Pretty Boy. 58% are correct. All right, how do I think the fight would go? It wouldn't be the most exciting fight in the world, guys. It just wouldn't be. You would think that Sugar Ray Leonard would be the aggressor. Floyd Mayweather would be the one on, I won't say on the back foot, but he would be the one looking to counter Sugar Ray. I'm going to go for Sugar Ray Leonard in this fight because most importantly, the speed factor. Very similar type of fighters. Sugar Ray Leonard was deceptively powerful in his punches as well. He could punch. If you look at some of his finishes, he could get you out of there. If he had you hurt, one of the best finishes you would see. He has his reputation of being this slick boxer and on his bike. No, look at a lot of his fights, especially against maybe the ones that were a tier below him. He would stand his ground and get them out with some unbelievable combinations. So in a very, very tough fight to pick, I'm picking Sugar Ray Leonard because of that speed factor. Slightly faster with his feet and, more importantly, faster with his hands. And I think he beats Floyd Mayweather on points in a very, very tough, evenly matched fight. It won't be tough as far as physicality, but tough as far as just two absolute geniuses in the ring. So I'm going to go for Sugar Ray Leonard. I'm going to agree with the 58% who gave him the decision, who gave him the nod. Give me your thoughts. Young Gun says, people say Sugar Ray Leonard waited till Hagler slowed down, but he was on the couch inactive for 3 years and moved up to weight division. Yeah, good call, Young Guns. Felix Trinidad. We actually haven't featured Felix Trinidad in any dream fights yet. So Who are some of the fights just quickly that we could match Leonard up with? Mayweather. Obviously, there's Duran, there's Hearns, there's Trinidad. Some really, really good fighters at 140. Sugar, maybe we could roll out Sugar Ray Robinson. I know he's a little bit old. I don't think I'll put him in because no matter who we put Sugar Ray Robinson in with, everyone's going to pick him. But some really good fights at 147 over the journey from Floyd Mayweather Jr. Even at 140, 135 as well. There's Duran at either 135, 147. There's Costa Zoo. Wow, so I think we might do that anyway. Glenn says, yep, Floyd episode would be great. Daniel, if I was ever granted a wish and was asked if there was one fight I could see, this would be it. Yeah, it'd be amazing, Daniel. Nectar says, if Floyd had his usual ref and favourite judges, he probably gets it. Come on, Nectar. Be nice, mate. Sugar could seriously punch. He was a genuine killer. I think he keeps Floyd in his shell. Yep, Margarito. Yep. Young Gun says, Tito versus Fernando. Vargas said another really good fight that would be as well. Leonard didn't fight. Mayweather didn't fight Vargas, did he? So that would be a ripper as well. I think definitely, the Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker, Julio Cesar Chavez against Mayweather. Some great fights to be made. It'll be an awesome fight. Yep. Young Guns, Tito versus Fernando Vargas happened. It was awesome. What a fight. It was. So was the De La Hoya Vargas fight. And of course, Tito and De La Hoya as well. All right, guys, we have to move on. It is time for the 154-pound main event. And we are going to the Hitman, Thomas Hearns / the Motor City Cobra. He's up against the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya. We'll start with Thomas, the Hitman Hearns / as I said, the Motor City Cobras. Turned pro in 1977. He won the WBA 147-pound title in 1978 or 9, I think it was, when he knocked out Pepino Cuevas. 1980 it actually was. Then he fought Sugar Ray Leonard a year later, lost in that by stoppage, of course, after being in front of that fight. Beat Wilfred Benitez for the WBC 154-pound title in 1982. Defended it numerous times, including that devastating second-round knockout of Roberto Duran. Was knocked out in a classic against Marvin Hagler. Then won multiple world titles after that. Dennis Andrews at 175, went back to 160, beat Juan Roldan, lost the title to Iran Barkley. The draw with Leonard, and it goes on and on and on. Against Virgil Hill, won the WBA title. Surprisingly lost again to Iran Barkley, which was surprising. And again, it goes on and on and on until he retired in 2006. Had a 61-5-1 record with 48 knockouts. His opponent, Oscar De La Hoya, the Golden Boy, turned pro in 1992 after winning the Olympic gold medal in Barcelona. He won his first world title against Jimmy Bradale in 1994, the WBO 130-pound title. And again, just going through the opponents there, Jorge Paez, John Molina, Rafael Ruiz. I mean, it's just too many. Jesse James Leija, the 2 wins over Julio Cesar Chavez, over Pernell Whitaker, Hector Camacho, Ike Corte, before that loss to Felix Trinidad. He had the 2 losses against Shane Mosley, of course, as well. Wins over Churro Gatti, Fernando Vargas, Felix Sturm, and we go on and on and on from there. The loss to Floyd Mayweather and retired in 2008 after that loss to Manny Pacquiao with a 39-6 record with 30 knockouts. All right, who wins and why? Glenn, yeah, I know McCallum would have been a better fight for Tommy, but look, again, as I said at the start, it might necessarily be the 2 best fighters of all time in the division. We've got to sort of keep it entertaining. I mean, look at the fight poster there. Let's have another look at it. Look at that fight poster. Thomas Hearns versus Oscar De La Hoya. Thomas Hearns against Mike McCallum doesn't really have the same ring to it, does it? So that's why I went for Oscar De La Hoya. But you're right. I think Mike McCallum was probably better at 154 than Oscar was. But, we've got to, as I said, keep an element of entertainment about it and a bit of, keep it to the mainstream fighters, I think, sometimes. Young Gun says, I think Tommy is going to tune up Oscar. Yep. Daniel says, I got Tommy here, big edge in length and power. Nectar the God says, I'm having Hearns here. Glenn says, Hearns, what's that? Is that killed him? Don't know. Kills him. Sorry, yeah, kills him. Geez, you're pretty one-sided in your opinions there, Glenn. I'll give my tip in a moment, but I don't think by any means has Tommy Hearns kill Oscar De La Hoya or beat him decisively. Let's go to the scorecards, and I'm going to call this a unanimous decision by scores of 75%. The winner of the 154-pound dream fight is Thomas the Hitman Hearns. So 75% to 25%. Look, tough fight to pick, I would have thought. Young Gun says physical attributes all go to Tommy. Drew says I've got Hearns. He just fought at such a high level due to his opposition. Yeah. Look, I think as far as talent for talent, resume to resume, I think Oscar De La Hoya more than stacks up to Thomas Hearns. But what we've got to look at here is the weight. Now, Oscar, we could have had him at 130. We could have had him at 135. I don't think we could have nudged out Duran or Whitaker at 135. I don't think we could have nudged out Chavez or Manny at 140. At 147, definitely couldn't have Leonard and Mayweather step aside. So I've put him at 154, where he did obviously win belts there. But Thomas Hearns, I think this was his peak weight. Maybe 160 arguably, but I think Thomas Hearns at 154 was a killer. That Thomas Hearns that knocked out Duran, that was peak Tommy Hearns. I think he beat Fred Hutchins at 154 after that, and then went up to 160 and above after that. I'm picking him at 154 because at that weight, snappy jab, powerful right hand. I just get the feeling, I could see the fight going that Thomas Hearns would stand center ring. He would whip that jab into Oscar De La Hoya. I think would struggle to get to Tommy Hearns. And I think if you did get close enough, you've got that devastating right hand by Hearns just waiting there, cocked, ready to throw. And I think at some stage he would catch Oscar coming in. Oscar didn't really move his head a lot coming in if you watch his fights. Very up and down. Would often be the aggressor, but he always had, in most of his fights, the advantage in height and reach. He wouldn't have that luxury against Thomas Hearns. So I think that jab from Thomas Hearns would keep Oscar at bay. And I just think as Oscar continued to maybe get a little bit braver as the fight went on and tried to push the fight a little bit, I just think he would walk straight into a right hand and all over. So I'm picking Thomas Hearns by 8th round knockout in this one over Oscar De La Hoya. Drew, I have Hearns. I've gone through that one. Kane, I'd have to say Hearns. I think he might get to him at some stage. I'm a big fan of Oscar. Yep. Yeah, again, Kane, it just comes down to 154. I couldn't squeeze Oscar in at the lower weights. So I think it's still very, very capable at 154. I just think at this weight, 154, Thomas Hearns was something else. Strangely enough, I think if they had a fought at 147, could have been a different story. Sorry, I'll just get a drink there. I think at 147, Tommy Hearns was weight drained in a lot of his fights. He had a different style entirely. He would be on his back foot trying to box opponents. Where Oscar, I think, at 147 was at his peak. I think he was at his best at 147. So, strangely enough, I probably would have picked Oscar at 147, but we're going to 154, and I'm backing Thomas Hearns by 8th round knockout. I thought this was an easy pick. Okay, geez, Glenn, you're hard to please there, mate. Too big, too powerful. Call the schools even. Oscar on that front foot, looking for a lead hook, gets knocked out inside 7. Yeah, well, I did say 8. I thought Hearns outboxed Leonard for the first 12 rounds. Yeah, he did. I just don't think that was the effective Thomas Hearns. I think, probably contradicts what you're saying there. He did outbox Leonard for the first 12 or 13. He stopped in the 14th, I think, wasn't it? And he did outbox him before Leonard picked it up. But again, I just don't think Hearns was the same fighter at 147. At 154, just a great, great fighter. Yeah, 15 rounds was too much. It was, mate. And he was weight drained. All right, what do we got? 2, 4, 5 fights to go. All right, sorry, guys. We're going to be in for a bit of a late one here. We'll continue on. All right, a 160. There's no finessing about this fight. This would just be just on from the word go. Let's go to 160 pounds. It is Marvelous Marvin Hagler up against Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Let's go to the records of both fighters. And we have Marvin Hagler for starters. Turned pro in 1973, won the title while he first had his the first crack, it was at 1980, I think it was. I'll just confirm that, against Vito Antuofermo. No, it was 1979, a 15-round draw. Got his shot, another shot against Alan Minter in England. Had to go all the way over there and endure not only Minter, but a beer bottle shower after the fight. Didn't have a chance to really celebrate his win, but that was a third-round stoppage, and then just went on a run for the next 7 years before he ran into Sugar Ray Leonard in 1987, beat the likes of Duran and Roldan, Thomas Hearns, of course, in one of the best middleweight fights of all time. Underrated Mustafa Hamsho, John the Beast Mugabe, just an unbelievable champion, and another one that unfortunately left us way too soon. And his record. Sorry, I've just gotten rid of it there. I won't bother picking it up. I think everyone knows his record. Gennady Triple G Golovkin turned pro in 2006. Won his first world title. When was it again? It was in... Well, if you count the IBO, we're not going to include that one. It was... What year was it? Because they don't count the WBA, do they? All right, was it 2014 against Marco Antonio Rubio for the WBC middleweight title? And look, he had so many defenses, beat the likes of David Lemieux, Cal Brook, Danny Jacobs, had the draw with Canelo, very, very questionable draw. The two losses after that as well. Look, unfortunately for Triple G, apart from Canelo, he didn't really have a level of opposition to really test him. He retired with a record of 42-2-1 with 37 knockouts. Hasn't officially retired, actually, by the way, but let's just say he's retired. Hasn't fought for nearly 3 years, and 42-2-1. Could have easily retired undefeated, maybe with one draw in there. So the Kazakh killer he was, wasn't he? So just back to the last fight. This fight, sorry, was that Hagler on points, okay? Glenn says no one gets knocked in this one. Iron chins, yeah. I don't think Hagler had that knockdown. Well, it was called a knockdown against Roldan, but he was down low and got clipped on the top of the head and was really caught off balance. I'm not going to count that as a knockdown. So neither one of them off their feet. Neither one of them really, when you think about it, that actually ever looked like they were in danger going down or being hurt or anything. So just both of them, like you said there, Glenn, iron chins. Drew says, Hagler for me, he always had that chip on his shoulder, but getting to the top the hard way. And despite his wonderful skills, he had a will to win that you can't teach. Yeah, well, let's go to the scorecards. It is, again, a unanimous decision this time by a score of 75%. It is, drumroll, marvelous Marvin Hagler. 75% said he would beat Gennady Golovkin. Now, Young Gun says, I don't see anybody getting stopped with these legendary chins. Hagler footwork will cause Triple G problems, and sweet jab, especially from a southpaw. And he has Hagler on points, unanimous decision. Look, I'm going to agree with that, Young Guns. I think Golovkin would be the bigger man in the fight. Hagler wasn't a big middleweight, but he got around that. He wasn't a big puncher either, contrary to his psyche or his aura about him was Marvin Hagler. But he just had all the tools. And I just think Triple G, he would stalk Hagler. He would try and cut the ring off. He would do everything he possibly could to get in close against Hagler. I just think Hagler's overall skills from switching from orthodox to southpaw, the different angles, not being able to be hurt, I just think Hagler wins on points. Tough fight. But Triple G was a little bit limited as far as what he could do outside just being that killer. And unfortunately, with Golovkin, apart from Canelo, we didn't really see him in a division full of stacked stars. We didn't see him the luxury that De La Hoya and Pacquiao and Canelo and Mayweather all had. And even to an extent, Chavez and these types of guys, they hadn't just a division full of other stars they could really show us what they had. Triple G didn't have that. So, unfortunately, it's really hard to gauge him. So, I think, not that Hagler had a lot either, by the way, but he did have, obviously, Leonard, Duran, and Hearns, which is obviously the big three. So, I'm going to pick Hagler on points in a really, really tough fight. Glenn says, tough thing for me is they were both avoided early in their career, so it's hard to pick their primes. Yep. Kane says, I think prime Triple G could win against any middleweight in history. Yeah, good call. Battle of the jabs, for me, probably just Hagler, yeah. So, I'm going to go, as I said, for Hagler on point. So 4 fights to go. I'm going to go through the next one a little bit more quicker because I've got a feeling we might have already done this fight. So I apologize if that is the case. It's 168, the main event of the dream fight of the 168-pound division. It is Canelo Alvarez against Roy Jones Jr. Canelo Alvarez turned pro in 2005, won his first world title against Matthew Hatton in 2011, and then it's just a who's who after that. Defended against Shane Mosley, unified Austin Trout, that lost to Mayweather. I'll just go back to my screen there. Miguel Cotto, Amir Khan, the fights with Triple G, Danny Jacobs, Kovalev, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, on and on and on it goes. And at super middleweight, Munguia, Bolunga, Charlo, if you want to include him in there. And, of course, he's got Bud Crawford coming up in a couple of months' time or 3 months' time. So is it 5 months' time? Sorry, what's the month is it now? It's a 4 months. Sorry, I'll get it right eventually. All right, who have we got there, guys? So going back to the last fight, Hagler would handle Triple G's power. I think Hagler in a close fight. Daniel, hang on, we got there. People always tear down fighters for beating little guys, moving up in weight. Yeah, well, Leonard, Duran, Hearns, Mugabe all moved up. Good point. Angry Mexican. Yep, not a bad point there. I know, Glenn. You know, yeah, he smokes him. Yeah, as I said, I think we've done this in the Canelo one. When I was putting it up before, I thought, I reckon we've done this fight. Let's go to the scorecards. Another unanimous decision. This time, 83% of the pollsters out there said Roy Jones Jr. would beat Canelo Alvarez, and I've got to agree. This was a hard one to come up with a 168-pound version. Look, I thought about Andre Ward. Maybe Andre Ward and Roy Jones Jr. would have been a better fighter, or Ward and Canelo. Again, I just thought, I forgot I'd done the fight, but Canelo and Jones Jr. just made all the sense in the world. But I think Roy Jones Jr. wins this fight pretty comfortably. Too big, too tall, reach too long, better footwork, better reflexes. I just don't think Canelo gets close enough to even do anything. And I'm backing Roy Jones Jr. in a very, very comfortable decision in this one. Yep, Young Guns, Roy Jones at 160, 168 is the best I've seen. Yep, I would tend to agree. Jones Jr. would give Canelo absolute fits, too slick, fast, and athletic in his prime. Jones all day by a lopsided decision. Yep, I'm with you there, mate. A pretty easy one to pick that one. All right, we have got 3 fights to go. We're going to move to the 175-pound division, and it is the Jinx, Michael Spinks, the former undisputed 175-pound champion, up against the current undisputed 175-pound champion, Dimitri Bivol. Let's go to Michael Spinks. For starters, Olympic gold medalist in 1976, turned pro in 1977, won the world title. What year was it, if I can find it here? In 1983 against Dwight Muhammad Kawi, previously Dwight Braxton, cleaned out the division before moving up to heavyweight and beating the Eastern Assassin Larry Holmes to take his IBF belt in 1985. And also in that time, beat Larry Holmes in the rematch, defended against Stephen Tankstead, and knocked out Jerry Cooney in the 5th round. Now, I don't think that was for the title. I'm just looking at BoxRec now. It was advertised as the heavyweight title. I don't think the titles are on the line, which is surprisingly to have a non-title heavyweight fight. But he knocked him out in the 5th round, and then, as we all know, came up against Iron Mike Tyson, and that was it for Michael Spinks. All right. Just on the last fight, Young Gun says if Canelo had his skills plus was 4 inches taller with a longer reach, maybe we could talk. Yeah, lots of maybes in there, Young Guns. We're not talking maybes. We're talking facts. And the fact is Canelo would just be far too small, short, whatever it might be for Roy Jones Jr. All right, Young Guns, Bivol, Spinks. Wow, love this fight. Glenn says Bivol because Spinks wouldn't have faced anyone like him. Yeah, maybe. Has Bivol faced anyone like Michael Spinks is the other question. Next of the guys says Spinks on points. Let's go to the scorecards. And the winner, we'll call this a majority decision. 2/3 of the votes. The winner of the 175-pound dream fight is Dimitri Bivol. 67% picked him over Michael Spinks. All right, I'll let the comments keep coming there. My call on the fight, I am actually going with Michael Spinks to win this fight. Very, very underrated at 175, undefeated at 175 as well. Look, granted, he didn't have the best pool of fighters to actually fight and beat. Not to say Dimitri Bivol has as well. I mean, apart from Better Beef, I know he beat Canelo as well, maybe. But this is a Canelo moving up to 175. I don't think you can really count him. I think the real test for Bivol is Better Beef. Now, if Bivol could beat Benavides, that would obviously add to his repertoire and his resume. But I just think at 175, I think Michael Spinks would, have the physical advantages over Dimitri Bivol, who's very tall, was Michael Spinks. That's why he carried the heavyweight weight very, very well. And I just think he was a better fighter. I don't think the strategy that Bivol used in beating Better Beef and he beat Canelo with, I just don't think that outsmarts Michael Spinks. Michael Spinks was a very, very good, not only a counter puncher, but also a good puncher as well. So I'm going to go with Michael Spinks on points in this fight. Drew says, I think I marginally have Bivol by close decision. Slightly too technical for Spinks, but I have it down to the wire. Yeah, it would have been a really, really tough fight. Would have been as well. So we'll keep it rolling here, guys. We're almost there. We've got 2 fights to go. We're going to go to the cruiserweight division. Just on the records, I went through the records. 31-1 with 21 knockouts was Spinks. Bivol was 24-1 with 12 knockouts as well. All right, the next fight at cruiserweight. Where is it? Evander, the real deal Holyfield, up against Alexander Usyk, the current champion. The only two fighters that have won the cruiserweight title and then moved up and won the heavyweight title. Now, if you're thinking that we've already done this fight, we have, but it was at heavyweight. We had Alexander Usyk in our first episode. We had both guys fighting at heavyweight. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference? I think there's a big difference. I think they were both sort of different fighters at 200 pounds? Tough fight to call. Evander Holyfield, we all remember what happened at the Olympics in '84, got disqualified, unified the cruiserweight title against Carlos de Leon, moved up, won the heavyweight title against Quick Tillis, but also at heavyweight. I won't go too much over his heavyweight fights, actually, because he doesn't really come into effect here, but cleaned out the heavyweight division, had some massive fights at heavyweight, but at cruiserweight, again, not a lot to sort of feast on at the weight. Carlos de Leon at the time was probably the best cruiserweight, probably in that brief history of that division, and he beat him in 8 rounds and took the world undisputed belts, and I thought he was dominant. Alexander Usyk as well, again, cleaned out the division. He's got a record of 23-0 with 14 knockouts. Let's go to the poll. Actually, before we do that, Drew says, unfortunately, Spinks' true worth often gets unfairly diminished, but getting destroyed by an absolute prime killing machine in Tyson. Yep. Young Gun says, I think Spinks and I have Bivol pound for pound too. I have him, pound for pound right now. Spinks' hand speed and power, plus good gas tank up to the Mike Tyson fight. He was mentally strong as well. He was. So he definitely wasn't mentally strong against Tyson. I think he was just relieved it was over in the end. Young Gun says, a real deal at either cruiser or heavy for me. I got Usyk, says Nectar of the Gods. Damn, I'm not sure. It's a tough one. Let's go to the scorecards. We're going to call this a split decision. The winner of the cruiserweight division was Evander, the real deal Holyfield, with a score of 57% compared to 43%. And I'll quickly just go over this one. At cruiserweight, like at heavyweight, I just think that Holyfield, his work rate, his ability to cut the ring off, he had a little bit of power. I just think everything that Usyk can do, I just think Holyfield could just do it a little bit better. I just think, again, his work rate, his volume punching, and the similar size that he would have. At cruiserweight, I think Holyfield hands down. At heavyweight, might be a little bit different, but Usyk wins a lot of his fights at cruiserweight by his agility, his hand speed, volume punching. He wouldn't have the same ability to do that against Evander Holyfield at heavyweight. But again, this fight's at cruiserweight. But the same principles sort of apply, and I'm going to go with Evander Holyfield to win this one on points. Unanimous, but close. Maybe 7 rounds to 5 for the real deal. Evander Holyfield, I think he's the greatest cruiserweight of all time. All right, guys, let's move on to the last fight in this series, this episode. And have we saved the best till last? I suppose time will tell. It is the heavyweights. Of course, we had to finish with the heavyweights. And probably no surprise with this fight. We've gone for Muhammad Ali, the greatest, up against Iron Mike Tyson, the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. We'll start with Muhammad Ali / Cassius Clay. Before I do that, Daniel says he's got Usyk at cruiser, Evander heavy. Yep, not a bad way to look at it, mate. All right. What's that there? Nectar of the Gods with today's drug testing. I'm not sure Holyfield gets into the fight. Yeah, well, maybe. Who knows? All right, the main event of the heavyweights. Muhammad Ali, Iron Mike Tyson. Muhammad Ali coming off the Olympic gold medal in 1960, won the world title in 1964 with the win over Sonny Liston, and we can just go through his resume there. Floyd Patterson, George Chuvalo, Henry Cooper, the rematch with Sonny Liston, of course, the fights with Joe Frazier, George Foreman, just as the nickname says, the greatest. Retired with a record of 56-5 with 37 KO. So he's going to come up against Iron Mike Tyson, turned pro in 1985, won the heavyweight title in 1986 with that devastating second round knockout of Trevor Berbick. Unified the titles against Bone Crusher Smith and Tony Tucker. In between that, beat Pinklon Thomas, beat Olympic gold medalist Tyrell Biggs. Again, beat the likes of Larry Holmes, Tony Tubbs, Frank Bruno, Carl the Truth Williams. Lost the belts to Buster Douglas. Now, that up to that point is probably the Tyson that I'm going for here. After that, yeah, look, he did have back-to-back wins over Razor Ruddock and regained the title against Frank Bruno, and then, of course, lost to Holyfield, Lewis, etc., etc. But this fight, I'm picking the 1989 version of Mike Tyson, the one that's just come off the wins over Michael Spinks and Frank Bruno, and then Carl the Truth Williams. That is the Mike Tyson I'm picking in this fight against Ali, who I would probably say is coming off the win. Who was he? I'd say maybe just before he went into exile over the Army draft. So maybe the one that was just the one that fought before Joe Frazier, the one that the undefeated version of Muhammad Ali, who was put out just before the Joe Frazier fight. That is a Muhammad Ali that I'm going to put him in against. All right, I'll get a couple of comments there, then I'll go to the scorecards. Kane says Ali all day. He hospitalised a prick yet. Tyson by third round KO, says Nectar of the Gods. Daniel says Ali had everything that could neutralise Tyson's pressure and power. Drew says, I have a prime Ali winning. He just seemed to rise to the occasion on the big stage time after time and was always aware of his opponent's strengths and weaknesses. All right, let's go to the scorecards, and it is a unanimous decision. 86% said that Muhammad Ali would beat Mike Tyson, who got 14% of the votes. So that is, as I said, I think you've got to call that unanimous. What's that? Young Guns. I watch guys like Mitch Green and James Bone Crusher Smith stay long and clinch on inside, frustrating Tyson. Ali will do the same, but win by unanimous decision. I get people see what happened with Frazier, so I think Mike Tyson could do more. Look, my call on the fight is that I would think that Muhammad Ali wins his fight on points. Now, it wouldn't be easy. I'm not subscribing to the Joe Frazier comparisons. I think they were different fighters. Joe Frazier, even though he had that explosive left hook, wasn't necessarily a one-punch knockout puncher, where Mike Tyson was. At his peak, it was one punch. If the fight went on a little bit with Mike Tyson, he would, like you said there, with Bone Crusher, Mitch Green, Quick Tillis was another one, who frustrated Mike by just spoiling him and leaning on him and using the size to really negate him. And he got frustrated and really didn't have the ability to get those guys out of there as the fight went on. So I think Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson really differ in that respect. Tyson, a real early fight type of guy who would really try and get you out of there early. Joe Frazier would start fast, but he would get better as the fight went on, and he had a lot better endurance and conditioning than what Mike Tyson did. So that's what got him over the line against Muhammad Ali. And yeah, similar type of styles, why they sort of come in bobbing and weaving and like they love to rip and hook and come from the ground up. I get that. But whereas Joe Frazier could just keep that pace up for 15 rounds, Mike Tyson couldn't. I think that Muhammad Ali would box from a distance early in the fight against Mike Tyson. I don't think that Mike Tyson really had the, what would you call it, the IQ to really get to Muhammad Ali. I just can't see Mike being at his most dangerous in those first 3, 4, 5 rounds. I just don't think I can see Mike Tyson landing on Muhammad Ali. And if he did, I think Ali had a great chin as well. The movement, the balks, the feints, the footwork. I just think Mike Tyson would struggle to get to Muhammad Ali in those first 5 rounds, and that really is the only chance he's got to get Muhammad Ali out of there. And I just don't. Muhammad Ali was never that type of guy to get caught and knocked out. So I think the best chance Tyson would have would be early. And then after that, I think it would be Muhammad Ali all the way. You would then start to see Mike Tyson tire. He would then be happy to clinch and hold and try and get through the fight that way. And that's not the style you need against Muhammad Ali. And I just think Muhammad Ali, if this was a 15-round fight, it's a easy call. 12 rounds a little bit harder. I'm going to go with Muhammad Ali by 8 rounds to 4. I think Tyson would maybe win 2 or 3 of those early rounds just by pure aggression. Muhammad Ali having a really good look at Mike and boxing from a distance and giving away those first 2, 3, 4 rounds. Then I just think Muhammad Ali would just outbox Mike for the duration. He wouldn't allow himself to be tied up and held and wrestled that Mike tended to do a lot when he was frustrated and maybe fatigued. Muhammad Ali would just sidestep him, push him up, tie up those hands, tire him out, and I think Muhammad Ali wins a really definitive decision, 8 rounds to 4. All right, get a couple of comments there. Young Guns. What is it there? Frazier will to win is something Mike didn't have. Yep, much after 4 or 5 rounds. That's the key. Mike better do it early. And that's the other thing, Young Guns. More so later in his career, Mike was accused of maybe not having much ticker. I disagree with that. I just think the conditioning wasn't there for him, so he just couldn't go on any longer. And look, maybe just didn't have the fortitude as much as fortitude as what Frazier did anyway, where Joe Frazier proved it time and time again. Even when he got knocked down, 6 or 7 times against George Foreman, kept getting up. The thriller in Manila, even though he didn't win, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about Joe Frazier. And I don't think Mike had the same sort of steel about him. So I don't think as the fight went on, you wouldn't see Mike Tyson do to Ali that Frazier did and get better as the fight went on and actually decked him late in that first fight. I don't think I could see Mike Tyson doing that. I think it'd be more desperation. And I think he'd really battle through those last few rounds of trying to chase Ali. And that's why I think he wins conclusively. All right, Daniel, from a psychological standpoint, imagine what Ali could have done to upset Tyson in the lead-up. It would have been 1 before they stepped through the ropes. Yeah, good call. That's another thing, Daniel. Tyson was a very emotional type of fighter, and Ali would just have an absolute field day, and Mike wouldn't really have a comeback. Mike was always sort of the protagonist, the aggressor, and the man at the press conferences and weigh-ins. He wouldn't be that against Mike Tyson, against Muhammad Ali. Ali would do exactly to Mike that he did to George Foreman and Joe Frazier. And just like those guys, I'm not sure Mike would have a comeback, and it would really affect him mentally. I've got no doubt. Young Gun says, Ali beat Liston, Foreman, Lyle, Frazier, Chavez, a lot of explosive guys and/or huge power. Yep, and none of them can get him out of there, Young Guns. And yeah, another really good point here, Kane. Tyson struggles against boxers who aren't scared of him. Well, look at more so Evander Holyfield and Buster Douglas. I'm not so counting Lennox Lewis in that. I think Mike was just well and truly shot by them. But Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield especially, both of them fought a similar way. I know Douglas and Holyfield are different types of fighters, but they approached the Tyson fight with the same game plan. Pretty much standing in front of Mike Tyson and saying, all right, let's go. and not being intimidated by him off the bat, but also not getting into a slugfest with Mike at the same time. Challenging him to engage, but then countering him, making him work hard. You look at both of those guys. They really made Mike work for 3 minutes of every round and really got him out of his comfort zone. This is the thing with Mike Tyson. You see a little bit with Canelo as well. They like to fight at their own pace. And if they don't fight at their own pace and be able to rest when they want to rest or fight when they want to fight, they really struggle, and both of those guys get fatigued. So Douglas and Holyfield did it. They made Tyson fight 3 minutes of every round to the point where he was exhausted, and both of them got him out of there late. I'm not saying Ali would get him out of there late, although you never know. The accumulation of punches from Ali could maybe get Tyson and maybe stop him in 10, 11, 12 rounds, whatever. I'm just getting the feeling, though, that Ali just cruises to a 12-round decision and just outboxes Mike in every sort of particle or part of the whole fight. So for me, Ali wins hands down. All right, so just to recap there, guys, we'll just go over it quickly. In the 150 15-pound division, we had Bam Rodriguez beating Micah Carbajal. At 118, we had Inoue beating Carlos Zarate. At 122, we had Wilfredo Gomez beating Marco Antonio Barrera. At 126, we had, I had Arguello winning, but the poll said Sanchez winning that one. 67%. At 130, unanimous all round that Lomachenko beats Nelson. At 135, the poll was with Duran. I went for Whitaker. At 140, the poll said Pacquiao. I went with Chavez. At 147, tough one, Sugar Ray Leonard and Mayweather. 58% went for Leonard. I also went for Sugar Ray. At 154, Thomas Hearns and De La Hoya. I went for Hearns by knockout. 75% agreed. At 160, I went for Hagler. 75% also agreed. 168, I went for Roy Jones Jr. over Canelo. 83% agreed. And at 175, I went for Spinks. I was in the minority, though. 67% went for Bivol. At cruiserweight, I went for Holyfield, and 57% agreed. And at heavyweight, I went for Muhammad Ali, and 86% agreed. All right, a couple of comments to go through just before we call it a night. Nectar of the Guide says, yep, Tyson needs to get it done early. Like I said, third round. Yeah, I don't think he catches Ali, though, mate. Jail time derailed the Tyson. That's the thing. It's very similar scenarios. I think we missed the best 3 years of both of these guys' career. Jail time derailed the Tyson train to a large extent, but would have always had Ali even in Mike's prime. Yeah, I'm the same. Daniel agrees. Sadly, we'll never know how truly great he could have been. Well, both of them, yeah, both lost the best 3 years of their careers. It is a real shame. And Drew, prime Tyson versus Fraser would have been tasty, but I would have Tyson by KO. Well, we've definitely got to put Mike Tyson on the list, don't we? We've got to match up Mike Tyson, and probably a little bit like Floyd Mayweather, a really polarizing figure who just really alienates the fans and divides the fans about how great they were. Mike Tyson, we've got to have against those all those great heavyweights, don't we? That everyone keeps saying he would never have beaten him or beaten him. Well, let's put it to the test, and we'll put him in there with, we've just done it with Ali. We'll put him in there with Foreman and Fraser and Ernie Shavers and Ken Norton. We'll do it. We'll do that. Even the likes of, I would like to have seen in there with the likes of Tim Witherspoon and all these types of guys. Some good fighters. So anyway. All right, guys. Well, let's call it a night. A little bit of an extended version tonight. We had, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 fights to get through tonight instead of the usual 10. So next week, I think we will go with Floyd Mayweather Jr., I think. And then we might do Tyson after that one. Any suggestions, let us know. Any fighter that you want me to see. It doesn't have to be one of these all-time greats. It can just be a really good, solid fighter. We'll match him up accordingly with other really good, solid fighters from other eras. And we'll see how we go. I mean, look, I've even been tempted to do one that features someone like an Iran the Blade Barkley. Not the most gifted fighter of all time, but geez, he was hell of a tough guy. Beat Hearns twice, I suppose. But how would he have gone against some of these really good middleweights of all, current and bygone eras as well? So don't just think it's got to be an all-time great. Just a fighter that you think would match up well against some other fighters from different eras, and we'll go from there. But as I said, at this stage, we'll do Floyd Mayweather Jr. Good one there, Funky Monkey. Well, Pacquiao or Leonard could be a good one to do as well as we go. So, guys, we're going to call it a night. Give me your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm sure they'll have comments, some feedback coming at some stage, and look forward to hearing. So, guys, have a great night. We'll catch you on the next episode of Dream Fights.